Now you have at least a guess on what type of insect trout are eating and what stage. You may not get it totally right, but at least you have some clues to go on. How do you make sure you have the best fly? You probably don't need an exact imitation of the insect trout are feeding on. You need something that's close enough to fool a trout as it floats by. And even in relatively slow water, trout don't have that much time to inspect a fly. So as long as it's close and behaving naturally, you have a good chance of fooling a trout. They're wary, but honestly, they aren't that smart. Most experienced fly fishers agree that the size of the fly is the most important factor. Trout often ignore something that is smaller than their current food and are suspicious of something that's larger. They just want to eat what's safe and has already been identified as food, and anything that falls outside of that box is just debris to them. If you can catch a sample of the insect in question, put it on the lid of your fly box and match it to something in your box. If you only see flies in the air or on the water and can't catch a sample, pick a fly that's a size or two smaller than what you think you see. Flies in the air and on the water always look much bigger than their true size. I can't tell you why, but it always fools me. Next in importance is shape. Does the fly have an upright wing, or are the wings held close to the body? The profile of a fly can be what triggers trout to feed, so pick a fly with an upright wing if you think the fish are eating mayflies, and one with a wing close to the body if you think they're taking caddis. Is it a spent mayfly or one that just hatched? Flies that have just hatched have upright wings, but spent mayfly spinners have wings spread out on the surface and ride low to the water. If you suspect fish are taking an emerger, a fly with short wings or just wing stubs, and perhaps a shuck to imitate the nymph skin the insect is trying to wriggle out of, might be in order. He's chomping. Ah, that's more like it. Get out of that moss. Get out of that moss. So we have had a lot of trouble catching these fish. They got really, really snotty. And what I did was I went to a longer tippet and a smaller fly. And sometimes that'll do the trick for you. I'm trying to use side pressure here to lead the fish both ways. I hate having a fish that's straight downstream from me because the fly pulls out more easily there. So it's a little tough at this angle to keep side pressure. I'm gonna have to eventually bring them straight up to get them close to the boat. But if I get them up here, then I can side pressure them right into the net. So he's ready, so I'm just gonna slide him in, and Addie's hopefully, yeah, gonna net him. Thank you, Addie. Thank you for the great boat positioning. You know, fishing during a hatch from a boat, the positioning of the boat is absolutely critical. And it's not like you're waiting, you can move around. You have to put the boat in the right place and stay there. And Addie just slid that boat in beautifully, right in range, enabled us to get a good presentation of the fish. So Addie, how important do you think color is during a hatch?
Well, I think trying to emulate the flies that you see, obviously color, pattern, we want to match that to the best of our ability, to put it on the water and present it to the fish as if it belongs there. I don't think it's always important that it needs to be an exact color. You know, today we're throwing some stuff that has purple on it.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And
the
so,
flies are black.
And the flies are black. So I don't think it's always a must, but we want to be in the general area, I think, to match the hatch.
Yeah. There's a dispute on how well fish can see color or whether it matters, and most guides will give you a similar answer to what Addie told me here. But hedge your bets and try to match the insect as closely as you can. If fish are taking an insect with a yellow body and cream wings, an imitation with a yellowish body and brownish wings should work okay. A fly with an olive body and dark gray wings might not. Just try to get the shade as close as you can. The right leader is almost as important as the right fly. This is not that difficult, but when fishing hatches, with fish close to the surface, you want to ensure your fly lands with stealth. You should be using a 9-foot leader at minimum, and it's usually better to go to a 12-footer because when casting to trout, you want to keep the thicker fly line as far away as possible. A fly line makes a much bigger splash than a leader. I would use the lightest tippet possible for the size fly you're using. So if you're fishing a size 16 fly and the tippet chart says you can use a 4X, 5X, or 6X, or the old rule of thumb, dividing the fly size by 3 to get the tippet size, which would give you 5X. I would go with 6X in this case, unless the water is really fast and broken, or very dirty, or the fish are quite large. Your fly should be treated with something to help it float if you're imitating an adult insect.
Oh yeah, there we go.
The best way to do this is to smear a small amount of fly paste on the fly. Then, when the fly stops floating, or after you catch a fish on it, treat the fly with white desiccant powder, which retreats the fly and adds a new coating of silicone. You can start right out with the powder if you want, but the converse doesn't work. Once a fly is wet, the silicone paste doesn't adhere to the fly properly.